Hello, my name is Jake Fechter, and I'm excited to present on today's topic of how Buckingham mitigates the threat of diminished capacity. I'll be joined today by my colleague Amanda Robinson. Let's get started. For our agenda today, we're going to start with the why and the who, looking at some of the basic trends in this area, while also some information about the aging population. We're then going to review what diminished capacity is and some of the warning signs to look out for. We'll then pivot to a discussion on some of the challenges facing our advisors and the clients they work with, and finally conclude with a discussion on our trusted contact form. Let's begin with an introduction of this concept and who it is most likely to impact, and why this has become such a relevant topic in our industry. A key component of that who is our baby boomers, right? This generation of our population born between 1946 and 1964. Now, this generation either has retired already or will be retiring soon. And these folks are actually living significantly longer than prior generations. We hear this phrase in our industry of sort of a silver tsunami, right? This aging population coming into, all different types of industries and putting and stressing those industries just like it is the wealth management industry. But these baby boomers, right? They're our wealthiest subset of clients. They make up almost 75% of the overall wealth in the United States. So this is a key component of who we serve. But when you actually dive in and look at what risk may come, right, when this is one of our key client bases, well, this aging population actually exposes itself to an increased risk of diseases like Alzheimer's or dementia. With a large portion of this client base living into their 80s and 90s, our advisors must prepare themselves to handle situations where a client or multiple clients they have goes through some type of diminished capacity event. We really believe that our advisors actually have a unique role in spotting early signs of diminished capacity because of the deep and lasting relationships we have. Now that we've set the stage a little bit here, Amanda, I want to actually talk about what diminished capacity is so we can better understand the scope.
Thanks, Jake. I'm going to now provide a rundown of the differences between diminished capacity and financial capacity before discussing how to better protect seniors. It is important to first define diminished capacity and compare it with financial capacity. So, what is diminished capacity or diminished confidence? Diminished capacity or diminished confidence is the decline of one's skills or the ability to make sound decisions. This can be caused by diseases such as Alzheimer's or dementia, but symptoms can arise long before a formal diagnosis. Diminished financial capacity, on the other hand, is a decline in a person's ability to manage money and financial assets to serve their best interests. This includes the inability to understand the consequences of investment decisions. Now that we've defined diminished capacity, let's go over some of the warning signs to look out for. Some of the warning signs of diminished capacity can include inconsistent decision making with current long term goals, concern about missing funds in their account, a refusal to follow appropriate investment advice, a lack of awareness of recently completed financial transactions, the inability to recognize or appreciate the consequences of their decisions, forgetfulness, erratic behavior, an inability to process simple concepts, a lack of hygiene, and lastly, disorientation with their surroundings. While these signs are non exhaustive, these are most common within our industry. I will now move on to some of the challenges of diminished capacity for advisors. Please know that our compliance team works directly with firm leadership and operations to hopefully address some of these challenges, some of which we've already talked about, right? This lack of a clear definition of what diminished capacity is and how it's a fluid scale, and that it could be different from dementia on one end of the spectrum, and of the worst end, it could be Alzheimer's. And so, thinking through what the definition of diminished capacity actually is can be difficult. There's also a regulatory risk in that what I chatted about earlier was that an ever changing landscape at the federal and state level, the rules in place. There's also business risk in that the wrong action by an advisor or an employee could negatively impact a client. We might not be upholding our fiduciary duty, or even the inaction or not taking action when we should have could be a concern here as well for the business. And lastly, there's a relationship risk. Something like dementia or diminished capacity doesn't impact just the person who's suffering from it, but other family members and clients who might be under our care. And so it's a lot for an advisor to handle, and you really have to be delicate with dealing with it to make sure that the relationship is structured in a good spot moving forward as well. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Jake.
Thanks for going over those challenges that advisors face, Amanda. We'll wrap with how to use and implement Buckingham's trusted contact form. And it's important to note before we go over this that the custodians and Buckingham actually have two different versions that we recommend advisors actually getting each form on file for your client. So, what is a trusted contact form? So, it's a document that secures that advance permission to reach out to some party that the client has designated in the event that the client goes through some type of physical, psychological, or cognitive changes. And so this trusted contact form, again, is designated by the client with a 1 or 2 page document. It gives either the advisor or, in some cases, if we're using the custodian form, the custodian authorization to speak to that party to get contact information, to discuss someone's mental or physical health state, to go over other red flags we may be seeing. Again, the important part here is it's an outside party that allows, again, the advisor or the custodian to just call, right, to see how things are going, to see if there are other things that we need to be aware of going on with this client that would help dictate sort of the future evolution of the relationship. It's important to note that the authority granted in these trusted contact forms is different and unique than any type of power of attorney. So the trusted contact cannot act on the client's behalf. It really is just in the event that we or the custodian feels like there is a need to reach out to someone, usually in some type of situation where we may have some type of mental or physical health decline. This gives us the ability, should we not have any other contacts on file. So again, an important resource in the advisor's toolkit here to be able to use that trusted contact form. We recommend really getting it for all clients, make it a part of normal client onboarding as a best practice, because you never know when you're going to need it, regardless of the age or situation of a client. It's a nice document to have in place, and it's a nice safeguard should something happen for the client. So that wraps up how Buckingham and how our legal and compliance team thinks about mitigating the threat of diminished capacity.